Hi guys, it's me, obviously. I am coming to you in my bathrobe, so sorry about that. It's been a long week and it's like Wednesday, so um, I wanted to make a very quick video about um, getting my Ehlers Danlos diagnosis. Um, I do have a whole video about the whole story of like my health history and the whole journey of getting a diagnosis. I wanted to make just a video just on the actual getting the diagnosis. So the specific doctor's appointment that I went to that got me the diagnosis, which is why it should be pretty short because it was actually just pretty quick. So if you want to hear the whole story about my whole diagnosis, that I will put it in the underpants down below, and you can watch that. But this is just my experience at the geneticist when I got my diagnosis. So that is what you do. You see a geneticist. I went directly to a geneticist. Most people, I think, would be coming from another doctor, because you're getting tested for all these other symptoms. So, like, your primary care would probably send you to an orthopedic surgeon or a neurologist or whatever. And whichever one of those is the first to suspect EDS, they will send you to a geneticist or a genetic counselor, sometimes it's called. But in my case, my mother was already diagnosed, so I pretty much knew that it's what I had. So I went directly to a geneticist. I searched forever to find a geneticist close by. I believe mine was at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, and I don't remember the exact title of the department, but it was genetics, and almost all of the genetics doctors that I saw had pediatric or childhood or infant in the title. I just think that's what most geneticists work on is, hereditary diseases and things that are usually have to do with babies being born. So, I think mine was like the genetics and childhood something center. I'm sorry, I don't recall. I just knew that I called a bunch of geneticists and was like, "Do you see adults or what?" And they were like, "Yeah, of course we do," but I didn't understand. So I went there, and the exam was pretty much in two parts, a sort of an oral history part, and then the physical exam. The entire thing combined, maybe an hour, I think. My boyfriend went with me, but he just waited in the waiting room. And so when I came out, he was like, "Wow, that was really fast." But it didn't, it couldn't have gone any longer. There wasn't that much to do. So the first half is they take an oral history, basically. So that just means that they're asking you 10 bazillion questions about your medical history, problems that you have had, problems that you are having, symptoms, past surgeries, hospitalizations, all that stuff. And then they ask you all those questions for nearly every member of your family. So living and deceased, they ask you about grandparents on both sides, ask you about your parents, their siblings, your siblings, even aunts and uncles, which is their siblings, but like in relation to you. And they basically want to know everything about everybody. So I highly recommend, if you're going, to sit down with whoever in your family knows that stuff. If not each person directly, which would be really cool to get. I wasn't quite prepared for all of it, so I could only give them the information that I know. Sort of wish I had sat down with my mom and wrote it all out before I went, because she would know better than I. But I knew enough. Anybody in my family that had a history of cancer, diabetes, anything like that. You tend to know those things, especially if people are deceased. Then, sorry, the email. Then what they died from. So, so they take all of that, and that was taken by. She was a genetic counselor, not like a nurse or anything, but she didn't really. She just took all the information, wrote all the notes, and then she left the room and said she was going to present all of that to the other geneticist, and then he would come in and perform the physical exam. So she left. I waited maybe 15-ish minutes. Then they both came in together, and he did a physical exam, which was very brief. They do the Baton scale test, which just tests your flexibility, basically. There are different points that they test: your fingers and your knees, and then you touch the floor. And they're just judging specifically for flexibility in those joints. And you actually get like points for each joint that is hypermobile, and then they calculate those points, and a certain number means you're hypermobile. I can't say I recall the exact number. I think mine was like 9, and I think to be hypermobile you have to be like 5, or I'm not sure. I will look it up right now while I am talking to you. But so he did the Baton scale test, and then I have these wrist brace on still, and when I type on my phone, it's like the sloppiest, saddest thing. And then he sort of looked over my skin. They check your skin for elasticity. I do not have the super stretchy skin. I have like slightly stretchy skin, but it is easily bruised, and I have some scarring from like nothing. So he looks at all of the scars that you have, bruises. Baton scale score. We're almost there. It's a 9-point scale. Requires the performance of 5 maneuvers. So I guess it's out of 9, and I had 9 out of 9. So, I wonder if you'll be able to see this. I'm going to try and show you. It's basically, I don't know if you can see that. You can sort of see here, elbow, fingers, touching the floor, which that's what I do. I have a flat palm on the floor. And then your feet. He also tested my knees. I guess that was just not for the score, but just for fun. But um, uh, yeah, so he did that test, looked over and then asked a few more questions. And then he just sort of said, yeah, okay, you've got it. He said you've got Ehlers Danlos, type 3, hypermobility type, which is, they have since, I think in the past year, changed the names and types. I don't recall what they're calling it now instead of type 3. But that's what it was at the time, and that's what he told me. They said that the only other test that they do, not to confirm diagnosis, but just to get a baseline for how I'm doing, they do a echocardiogram on the heart because some of the other types, I think most of the other types of Ehlers-Danlos are vascular, and they can affect your heart, and it's very scary. So they want to sort of just check and make sure that my heart is okay. And then as well as a bone density test. And so I went and had those done, and things were fine. So I had those results sent to that genetic counselor as well. I do not continue to see those doctors. They just sort of said, here's your diagnosis. We will send you proper paperwork in the mail that confirms this. And they requested that I stay in touch and sort of send them any information that I get further down the line. I think just because, they're still doing research on EDS, and so they want to keep up on all the patients that they can, which is totally cool. I actually didn't really occur to me till right now that I'm saying this, that I should email them and tell them about my new diagnosis of the MCTD, because I've been spending some time on Reddit, and I'm in a Ehlers Danlos subreddit, and I posted about my diagnosis of autoimmune disease because I feel like there's actually a pretty high amount of crossover between EDS and autoimmune diseases, and I was curious about who else had it, and I did get quite a few messages from people saying that they also had lupus, as well as some other things, and someone also sent me a recent research paper on the connection between EDS and autoimmune disease. And it was inconclusive in that they couldn't tell what the link was, but it was conclusive in that there was a correlation and there was a link. So pretty interesting. So I thought I should let them know that I have this thing. So so that's it. The whole appointment was pretty quick, very painless. The physical exam was very non-invasive. It was just a lot of, doing different maneuvers. I didn't have to put on a Johnny or anything. It was just two very nice doctors asking a lot of questions. And I think that they treated me a little bit differently in that I went in sort of already knowing that I had EDS, and I just needed them to confirm. And because of that, they didn't have to break the news to me like they would, to like a parent bringing their child in or someone who just doesn't know what's wrong with them. I think it could be very hard to hear any diagnosis, that something is wrong with your child or with yourself, and that it's not something that is curable and that it is degenerative. So, I wouldn't say that they were particularly, delicate in giving me this news. But I feel like they really felt the room. They knew that I already knew, and I was not upset by this. And yeah, and then afterwards, my dog is snorting. Afterwards, about a week afterwards, I actually emailed the doctor, the geneticist, and just asked her a few questions that I had thought of, and she was super kind and wrote me back. I think I had asked about that I'm an organ donor, and I always have been. I have the little card in my wallet, and I wasn't sure if having a connective tissue disorder would make me ineligible to donate organs. This dog is ripping her bed apart. Hi. Hey. 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 Stop. 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 Gosh, she's the worst. She's totally deaf now, so I can yell at her, and she doesn't hear me. So instead, she's just sitting there ripping her bed apart. So the organ donor thing. I knew that I could not donate my eyes because they are blind. And obviously, they wouldn't want to take tendons or my heart probably, but I wasn't sure about anything else. And she wrote me right back and said that it would be unlikely that they would want to use my organs, but that it would not disqualify me from being an organ donor. So I continued to keep the little card in there. I actually want to make a little card. I've seen people do it. Make a little medical card with my conditions on it to keep with that donation card. That way, if anything happens, I'm in some kind of accident and they're like, sweet, look at all these organs, that they'll have it right there saying all these other things. So they'll know what they're getting into. Okay, so I'm sorry that I said this was going to be really short. I thought it would be. I ramble too much. But I've been home alone all week on hand rest. Haven't been using my hands, and so a little bit socially deprived. So there you have it. That is just about sort of what to expect when you go to the geneticist to get an Ehlers Danlos syndrome diagnosis. So I hope that helps. And I will talk to you later. Bye.